Today's lesson is on sacred geography. This is not really a sequel, but in the same vein as last week's, which was about the priesthood. But nobody was here to see that, except for Andrew at the end a little bit. So this one is about sacred geography. It's tied to that. And the first idea we're going to talk about is the temple. And in Greek, this is pronounced naos. In Hebrew, it's heikal. This is the place where heaven and earth meet. So, the very first place we see that is considered a temple is the Garden of Eden. Even though it's not considered a temple in such words in Genesis, the Garden of Eden is the place where heaven and earth meet. As you might think, heaven is a place on earth.
Yes, sir.
The idea of a temple is that it's a microcosm of creation. So everything that is good about creation is kind of summed up in the temple.
Is that like a real temple? What is it?
So I'll describe that in a second. Eden is a place that is planted in the east. How far east? We don't know. We have no idea where Eden actually was. But the reason why we face east when we worship, every Orthodox temple is pointed east, is because Eden is planted in the east. And there are many other references to the direction east in the scriptures, especially in the Psalms. Like David keeps saying, I will point towards your holy temple when I pray. So we continue in the tradition of facing east when we pray.
But also because it was in the east where Jesus rose from the dead. So we're facing his place of resurrection.
Well, what if we were, I have a question, what if we were like way east and we were in Russia?
They made a mistake here, we're facing north, so we're facing the Alaskans. When they first built this church, this is the property that they got, and it was only $500, so this is where all the land they could afford. And so they made a mistake when they built the church. They didn't really inform the bishop. You're supposed to inform the bishop to give him, your
blessing,
all the architect, situation. But it's okay. We're still praying.
You're facing east. You're facing east.
My home. That's where my home is.
literally.
The eastern United States.
Yeah.
Well, is it Boston?
Yes.
So, Eden, or paradise, has 4 rivers flowing out of it. And you'll see this kind of shape right here. This is the Taj Mahal. I believe it's in India. So this is of course a pagan recreation of paradise. And I think this is kind of ingrained into humanity because religions all across the world have the same kind of idea of paradise, a walled garden that humanity wants to get back to. So this Taj Mahal is an example of how even the pagans knew that paradise was supposed to be something like this. It's got 4 rivers flowing out of it. And it's a garden, of course. Oh, sorry. So something that's important about the garden is that it was filled with animals. Adam named animals there. And it was filled with fruit that willingly offered itself up to Adam and Eve. And this fruit, there's an expression in Hebrew. The sweet nectar that comes out of a fruit is referred to as honey. And so this was a land that was flowing with milk and honey, Eden. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So in the center of the garden is a tree. And this was seen as the place where heaven and earth met the most, right at the center of the garden, where the 4 rivers flowed out of. But there was a point when heaven and earth were separated, and this was the creation of Hades. So after the serpent tempted Adam and Eve at the tree, they were both given a sentence, Adam and Satan. Yep. So after Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, there was a creation of this place called Hades, or Sheol. And we read about the creation of Hades in Genesis 3:14 through 15. Can someone read that?
Genesis.
I got you, Joseph.
Okay.
This is the King James Version.
Yeah.
That's good.
And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
So we got this weird situation with the snake eating dust. What's that about? Well, in Genesis 3:19, it kind of answers the question about what this dust is.
To read that,
yeah,
sir.
that one too.
In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread.
This is the curse for Adam.
In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
So we see that when Adam dies, he turns to dust. And then we've got this snake that eats dust. And ultimately, it's seeming like Satan is kind of like swallowing dead people. And we see this as a really good example in Jonah chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. So if someone can turn to that and read that, that'll be great.
You can find it. You probably know the order of all these, don't you? I think
In the Orthodox Study Bible, it's a different order for the minor prophets.
I
So
thought Jonah's one of the last ones.
he's the fifth one, I think, in King James.
He's not the last minor prophet.
One of the last ones.
Really? Oh, wow.
Malachi's the last.
What's the
I
difference
think it's
between
before
a minor
Isaiah and that
prophet
Not that much.
and a major prophet?
Minor prophet has a smaller book.
Yeah.
That's
I
it?
mean,
Yeah.
oh,
So
like
the Orthodox Study Bible is ordered a little bit weird because the Septuagint doesn't have the same
Weird?
order as.
I beg your pardon?
Huh?
What did you say?
In comparison to King James.
I think
You were right.
originally they were
What I know?
called the 12,
you
the
were
minor
right.
prophets, which is probably a better title because the term minor is
Oh, yeah.
kind of misleading.
There was a
they
father
were-
guy outraged that
Jonah?
someone said, and the minor prophets, and he was like, there's no such thing as a minor prophet.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
they
it just
were-
refers to the size.
They were
so,
under 18, so
You can pass the prayers.
I mean,
You missed
that's pretty impressive as far as I can say.
You could have said
See,
the
I thought it
minor
was minor prophet. Like I thought they were employed as minors.
oh,
Okay, so Obadiah,
They're
Jonah,
deep,
Okay,
man.
so
they're deep.
it's
They're
between
deep.
Obadiah
the
Fair enough.
wisdom.
and Nahum. Okay, so
You got to really dig
Well,
to understand what you want.
Yeah.
That's recorded, by the way. that dad joke
That was
is
funny.
going in the record.
How there's only one
back to Ryan.
Don't call it a dad joke. If you call it a dad joke, it
Then
becomes a
it
dad
It already
joke.
is, though.
No.
no,
That's
I differ.
Taking it what since thou wilt.
Here, so it's after this,
But
a few books.
you are a dad though, right? Don't you have a kid?
No.
No?
No.
Not yet?
I own my
Oh,
husband.
here we
We're
go.
close, we're close.
Not yet.
Finally.
Not yet.
Group
He's
kind of-
effort.
Victory!
Jonah 2,
He's
verses
like
1
an
through
odd
3.
One,
Yeah.
two, three. Jonah's song of thanksgiving. Now the Lord commanded a huge sea creature to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the sea creature 3 days and 3 nights. And from the belly of the sea creature, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God and said, I cry out in my affliction to you, Lord my God, and he heard my voice. Out of the belly of Hades, you heard the cry of my voice.
Yeah, so Jonah gets swallowed up by a sea creature, which in icons is portrayed as a serpent. And it says, once he gets in the belly of the sea creature, I'm in Hades. So Hades is a sea creature, some sort of a snake. And what's interesting about Hades as well is that often we speak of Hades as having brazen gates, like in Isaiah 45 verse 2. The words for serpent and for bronze are actually very similar in Hebrew. The word for serpent is nachash, the word for bronze is nachusha, and these are kind of played with linguistically throughout the scriptures because often you see, like for instance, Goliath wore bronze armor, so he was wearing snaky armor. It's sort of like a wordplay thing to show that he is kind of seed of the serpent.
Or like the bronze serpent.
Yeah, the bronze serpent is another good example of that,
Yeah.
which I heard a really good interpretation of that from Andrew, I think. But I'm not going to get sidetracked on that. And so in the Old Testament, when people died, all of them went to Hades, which is a place in the underworld. Not the same place as hell, because hell is something that comes later with the new heaven and the new earth. But Hades was, in the King James, translated as hell. So, for instance, one famous lyricist has said, "Mama, we all go to hell," which now is no longer accurate. But Adam was banned from the Garden of Eden, and he died outside of the holy mountain of God, which is going to become relevant later when we talk about the Holy Sepulchre. This right here are the gates to Hades. This is on a mountain called Mount Zaphon, or Mount Hermon. This is a mountain to the north in the area of Bashan. This is north of Israel. And this is often spoken of as like the archetypal demon mountain. And there were many pagan practices that involved going to this spot and summoning the souls of the dead, usually dead heroes like demigods. And you would ask them to do stuff for you. So a lot of demon worship was happening here. What it looks like is interesting right here is that you've got this giant natural formation here that kind of goes into the mountain, and then you've got like one that was carved out of the stone right here. So perhaps this is a ritual site.
Does that go actually in the mountain, or is that just a shadow?
This that actually goes in the mountain only a little ways though. Just
How about that big dark shape on the left?
That one does, and in fact there's a river flowing through it.
Oh shoot! So that's that river you were talking about.
River State.
Yeah, although that was kind of like a tiny version of it. There's another version of that we'll get to in a little bit.
Okay.
Joseph?
Yeah?
So I wasn't aware of this, but it immediately put me in mind of this passage from Psalm 68. The hill of God, referring to Zion, of course. The hill of God is as the hill of Bashan, and high hill as the hill of Bashan. Why leap ye high hills? This is the hill which God desireth to dwell in. Yea, the Lord will dwell in it forever. And I think there's maybe another place in the Psalms where the mountain of Bashan is mocked.
Oh, it's all over the place.
Yeah, so that's what that's about, you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
kind of that
So you'll
antithesis.
if you read through the Psalms, you'll often start just making connections. If you think about holy geography, the Psalms reference it all the time. And we will talk about Zion too. So Adam and all his descendants became prisoners of Hades. This is like the ritual site where people would enter the underworld, but not like you could actually go in there and actually see dead people. Yeah, like for instance, Jacob says, "I shall go down to Hades to see my son" in Genesis 37:35. Lazarus is in a compartment of Hades called Abraham's bosom in Luke 16. So this, being Mount Hermon, is in Caesarea Philippi.
Sky passes it around.
And we have a practice of facing north when we do a particular thing in the church, which I'll get to in a little bit. In Isaiah 14, let's see, do I have it?
If you're gonna bite it, you better finish it, brother.
Okay, yeah.
Huh?
I'm going to mention Isaiah 14 in a second. This was also the place that in the book of Enoch, even though it's not canonical, it's mentioned that the fallen angels went to make a pact to sin there before they went and did it with the sons of men.
At Hermon?
Yeah, at Mount Hermon. That's what the book of Enoch says, they made their pact. So there's a lot of evil stuff coming from this mountain.
Right when those.
So in Ugaritic worship, this is really relevant, and this makes some parallels with some Psalms and the book of Isaiah. And we see Baal being kind of characterized in the same way that Satan is. So he's declaring to sea and river, which are gods in the divine council in Ugaritic worship. He ascends to Mount Zaphon with other rebellious gods to challenge the heads of the divine council, which are sea and river. Sea and river send messengers to stop them.
Great question.
Yeah?
What's the Ugaritic legend, just for people who don't know?
It's called the Baal cycle, and it's a Canaanite thing. So the Canaanites were practicing this before the Israelites came in and fought them.
Okay.
So Ugaritic, Canaanite, kind of the same thing.
Okay.
And it's
There. Huh?
And it's from what in modern times would be called the Palestine region.
Yes.
Caesarea.
Yeah, this is the area of Bashan, this is the area of Philippi, north of Israel. Although there are places that worship Baal all throughout the area of Israel and even in other regions.
Yeah.
There, the gods perceive them. They perceive sea's messengers, the legation of Judge River. They lower their heads on top of their knees, onto their royal thrones. Baal rebukes them. Why do you lower, O gods, your heads, on top of your knees, on top of your royal thrones? Together will the gods answer the tablet of sea's messengers, of the legation of Judge River. Raise, O gods, your heads, from the tops of your knees, from your royal thrones, and I myself will answer sea's messengers, the legation of Judge River. The gods raise their heads from the tops of their knees, from their royal thrones. He goes on to totally win against Sea and River, then dies voluntarily and goes to Hades. And we should compare this to Satan, or this character called the Morning Star in Isaiah 14, verses 12 through 15. Someone can open up to that.
Isaiah? Yeah, that's what I know.
See the last book before the 12?
Oh, it's after the 12
Hmm.
in the Orthodox Study Bible.
It's the first of the
It's a bit
major league prophets.
The Major League Prophets, like the baseball team.
Exactly.
There should be a real baseball team called the Major League Prophets.
Maybe we could just use an app, it'd be a lot quicker. But here's Isaiah.
I can use it.
Isaiah 14, 12 through 15.
I do
14.
I don't have the OSG version.
Well, it won't matter if you have the Orthodox Study Bible versions or the regular,
I guess.
because the wording is mostly the same.
How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, who rose up in the morning, who he sends for all the nations is crushed to the earth. For you said in your mind, I will ascend into heaven, and I will place my throne above the stars of heaven. I will sit on a lofty mountain, on the lofty mountains toward the north. I will ascend above the clouds. I will be like the Most High. But now you shall descend into Hades, to the foundations of the earth.
Mm-hmm. So there's like this literary parallel. And we will get back to this portion because there's a psalm that references this directly as well.
The NIV references Mount Zaphon directly.
Oh,
in the
okay.
in the translation.
Well, Zaphon is the word for north in Hebrew. So this is just a little kind of a side note. Noah's Ark is also seen as a microcosm of creation. And therefore, oh yes, I'll get to that. Noah's Ark is a microcosm of creation because all the animals and everything that's living comes onto the boat and is saved from the waters of uncreation that God casts upon the earth. So while everything else is being destroyed, God keeps a little microcosm of creation in the ark. And seeing this parallel with the temple and with Noah's Ark, there are some Russians in Moscow who have made a church that is functionally like an ark. I don't know if this one actually floats. People tell me that there's a Russian church that actually floats on water.
Yeah, I've seen one on. I've
That
seen
is so
them.
pretty.
But this is just like a visual representation that the ark is like the same kind of icon as the church.
We should fund it.
Incredible.
A moat.
Incredible the way they made it.
Church boat.
And
It's like a wave generator that puts in a circuit forever.
As you can see, the back, like where the angel is, the back, that's the altar area.
Oh.
Mm.
And so where the congregation comes in is at the end of the boat and takes a right. Probably there's an iconostas right at, where it goes this way and that way. So
Oh,
I also had a clock tower on it as well.
Wow.
it's amazing. Yeah, the
Why do
fact
you
they
think they're
have
just like, oh, we gotta know time
even got bells there.
Okay, so
Oh, this is Mount Sinai.
yes, moving on to Moses. We're going to spend a lot of time with Moses because this is where a lot of stuff gets set up
Hi.
for the New Testament. Hey, Moses.
Gracious.
So Mount Sinai becomes the mountain of God. So the mountain of God isn't just like one static place. It kind of moves around depending on how God needs it. This right here is an icon of the mountain of God. We can kind of see a depiction of the divine council with Christ and the Theotokos behind him in the burning bush. Moses is taking off his sandals there. But the modern day site for Mount Sinai, this is believed to be the place where Mount Sinai is, there's an Orthodox monastery there called St. Catherine's Monastery, where we get a lot of really good Bible manuscripts, including what could be considered the oldest complete Bible in Greek that we have. It's got missing pages, but it used to be complete Bible.
And the British came and while they were in church one day, they tried to steal it.
Who was it?
The British.
Its name starts with a T, I think.
Tischendorf.
Tischendorf.
Traitor.
Yeah, he took like part of it. He took part of the Bible and then he came back late because he thought the Greeks were gonna burn it. It was like, oh, it's in one of these boxes, and they're using the same kind of boxes to burn these other things. So they're gonna burn the Bible. And so he just like took part of the Bible and left. And then he came back later. He was like, "Hey, you guys got any more of that Bible?" And they're like, "We're not gonna let you like take more of our stuff.
He's like that. He's like Nicolas Cage from National Treasure.
We're gonna steal the world's oldest Bible."
So when I went there,
And then they just put in a solution.
so I went there in my early days, and they now have a bunch of keys, and one man is totally in charge of you only can talk to him if you want to get into a certain place, and you must get permission and a blessing for him to go to the library or go anywhere on the property on Mount Sinai. And I know the man that is in charge of the library, the monk. He's Hiram Monk Justin, and he's incredible. He's very knowledgeable about the Bible, and he's protecting the manuscripts and fixing them up and trying to put them so that they won't get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're changing like the atmosphere and everything. So in that library,
Argon. They use argon.
so it's quite a incredible visit there.
Yeah. So this is one of the historic mountains of God. Wait a sec. Oh yeah. One of the other places where we see imagery of sacred geography is the Red Sea. So in Egyptian legend, at least at the time of Moses, the Red Sea was a whole lot like the river Styx in Greek. So if any of you have ever read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, you might know a little bit about the river Styx. You sound like you know a little bit about it.
My kids have
Of course.
watched, read through the Percy Jackson series. I read through the Odyssey, so that's where I learned about the river Styx.
I listened to their album.
Yeah, come sail away.
Sail away.
I read,
The ferryman's gonna bring you across the river of death.
and then I read some of the books too. Yeah, that series was like crazy popular.
Yeah, I actually really like The Last Olympian.
Yeah.
Um,
And then they
The
had-
Odyssey was pretty big too in its time.
Classic.
I have a copy of
bestseller.
it.
New York Times bestseller, actually.
And actually,
in its time.
it wasn't even written in its
Old
time.
York, actually.
Old York. You're right. Sorry.
Okay. We're talking. Go ahead.
So, in Egyptian legend, I got this information from Lord of Spirits, by the way, which is a great podcast. You should all listen to it. They talk about how the river Styx is like the river you cross in the afterlife. So when you start out, you die. You end up in a pretty bad part of Hades. Well, all of it's kind of bad because you're dead. But the idea is, if you get across the Red Sea. If you get across the Red Sea, then you'll end up in a better place. So sort of like if we envisioned it, like.
Quick question. So I'm not sure how much this is related to your presentation, but Hades, is that the name for the entire Greek underworld, or is that just a section of it? Like Hades, and then you have like
Elysium.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of Hades as well. Because like all of it is the place of the dead, but Elysium
So
is like
Hades-
the good part.
So Hades is just the name for the whole
Mhm.
underworld. Okay.
And it's also called Sheol in Hebrew.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the underworld where everyone goes when they die.
Yeah.
So you start off in a pretty bad part of Hades, and the idea is you want to swim across the Red Sea so you can get to the better part, and maybe the Elysium Fields, maybe Abraham's bosom. Although Hebrew theology doesn't really work that way.
Swim across the Styx.
Yeah.
I thought that Chiron was like the ferryman.
The what?
I thought Chiron was the ferryman who brought people across.
I don't know if that came along later or if that was like something that originally existed, although people could choose to swim. But the idea was that do you know?
Well, I mean, Chiron's not going to be part of Hebrew sacred geography.
But this is also Egyptian sacred geography, so I don't know if he's part of that.
We're dealing with Hebrew worldview, but we're also dealing with a lot of other mythologies, and I think we're getting them a little bit mixed together.
Yeah, but the idea is that there are spirits of dead giants are waiting in the abyss beneath the waters that'll try to drag you down if you try to go across. So the idea is really hard to get to the good part of Hades.
Right.
But what Moses and the Egyptians did was they crossed over the Red Sea, the Sea of Death, and came out the other side with their bodies alive, which is something that doesn't happen.
Right.
So it's kind of like an image of going through death and then coming out the other side with a resurrected body.
Wonderful, I like that. I never saw such an icon. How can we get a copy of this?
I don't know.
The coloration is impressive.
Beautiful.
You can tell they really layered.
I think this is a really recent icon.
It looks recent because it looks like the water is copying the Japanese artist.
It
Oh.
does look like that.
Yeah, that's
The
really
water
cool.
looks really good.
The
I was gonna
Japanese
say.
tidal wave in the mountain.
I like how you can
Right,
see like the
because-
sheep in the background.
And I like
Oh, and the dead
Orthodox
Egyptians.
iconography of water would use swirls with well-defined
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that I love the way the people are struggling, and it's really true. They were. Look at the angel in back of Moses making noise with his
Harp.
That's actually
Miriam.
Miriam.
It's
They
beautiful.
kind of look similar to angels in
Yeah,
the
they
icon
look
of
like,
the
they look
Trinity.
like angels.
They do, and yeah, they all have the Trinity face. It's
no,
probably
they
all on
don't.
purpose.
Prophet Moses and crossing of the Red Sea.
Yeah, so it's apparent that it's the river of death because I think it's in Psalm 74. There's the Leviathan who's brought up, this snake that lives in the waters. And it says, God, while he split the waters, smote the head of the Leviathan, which is like he's preventing death for the
Smoked him?
Israelites. Yeah, he smote.
That's what it said.
Smote.
Smote.
Do you know what smote is?
No.
You're thinking smoke.
I'm thinking like you smoked them.
Smite.
Smite.
Oh,
You're thinking
that's
incorrectly.
close enough. Same
Okay,
idea.
wait a minute. I'm going to say something.
Okay.
I think that only in the last 2 years they found the chariots in the water.
Oh, that's been a while, but I don't know if they've come up with conclusive evidence for that.
I don't know, I kind of like to believe it. I really believe it because metal doesn't really decay that quickly. It takes forever. As we know when the Titanic went down,
Well, were they made of metal or were they made of wood?
The metal wheel.
metal wheel.
Oh.
So,
But this would be over 3,000 years
Well,
old.
they
sorry,
they would encase the wall.
God knows what he's doing.
Metal.
Mhm. Oh, you're right.
And
Outside.
so wait a minute, wait, do they understand this? That God knows what he's doing when it comes to this. And people do have some very bad thoughts about it, so therefore maybe God's trying to reveal to us that this is what really happened because you won't believe it. And then you're trying to believe that when he was crossing the Red Sea, that he was going more northern where it didn't bother that situation.
Oh, the little tiny seas that wouldn't kill
Yeah.
anyone if it
Yeah.
collapsed on them.
So,
No, they would. No, they would definitely.
It would?
Well, water weighs a lot, so
Mm.
yeah, it definitely. Yeah, having a
Okay.
wall of water fall on you will 100% kill you.
so I'm kind of glad to
I'm sure there are many things that can kill you.
Sure.
Well, you know, whatever.
That's the problem being alive.
I'll agree with the wheel because I agree that they did find the chariots.
Mm.
I'm happy about that because it proves that it did take place.
Yeah, so I think it's Paul who refers to this as the waters of baptism in the New Testament.
Yeah,
He says that
yeah.
everyone who was with Moses was baptized in the Red Sea.
Yes.
But yeah, baptism is another icon of the resurrection. So that in the time of Moses, we have the place where God meets his people, which is the tabernacle. This is a tent where they would keep the holy relics of God. So like this right here, this is like a little model of the temple, or not the temple, but the tabernacle. This is called the Holy of Holies. You'd only go in here once a year to purify it. The high priest only once a year. This is called the holy place, and this is where the priests would go, and they would perform services there. And then outside of this, within like the outer court area, I believe people could come in here. Is that right, Mr. Russell? That almost anyone could come into this outer court, or is it just men?
I don't think women were allowed.
You don't think women are allowed?
No.
In Solomon's temple, for sure, women were kept out. I don't recall in the tabernacle.
Because I tried to find this information, I couldn't figure out if women could enter the outer court of the tabernacle. Only priests could enter here, but other people could come in here to offer to give their animals over to the priest for sacrifice.
Right. And was there any place to wash? Because they never.
Yeah, so there's a bronze sea. I think this is the bronze sea.
Good.
SEAC, as in like.
Nobody
the place
ever went to temple without washing.
Yeah, and this is in the very middle of the camp, which was arrayed in the shape of a cross. 3 tribes to the left and right, 3 tribes to the top and bottom. And so, like, this is an image of Eden, because you see, kind of there are streams that go out, but these streams are kind of made of people. The four rivers are made of people that are surrounding God's holy place.
And those 2 figures look like
That's
Moses
good stuff,
and
Joseph.
Aaron.
Let's see. And so when they got to the Promised Land, you guys remember the phrase that the Promised Land kept being referred to as?
Milk and honey.
Yeah, the land flowing with milk and honey, which
Yeah.
was an image of Eden. So, like, constantly there's images of, like, the people need to come back to the place where they met God in the first place.
Oh, wow.
In the days of David and Solomon, we have the Temple Mount, which is in Jerusalem. Finally, we get to what we understand is the temple, the actual temple itself. So this is a modern-day picture of Mount Zion. This big area around it is called the Temple Mount. We have no idea when that's constructed. I think that maybe it was around for the first temple. Like maybe Solomon built this to put the temple on top. And this is a diagram of, I believe, Solomon's. Yeah,
I think it's been
Solomon's
fixed up like many times, right? I know like Herod spent a lot of money fixing it, and then I know the Crusaders, when they came around, they spent a lot of time
Fixing the temple
adding
mount?
bricks, yeah,
Mm.
and making a lot of infrastructure in Jerusalem in general.
Yeah, so this is Herod's temple. Or sorry, not this is Herod's temple. This is Solomon's temple,
Okay.
the first temple. And this is kind of a better picture of it from top down. And you can see that, once again, like with the tabernacle, you have the most holy place, and you've got the holy place the priests can go into, and then the Israelites can come in this kind of area, the outside, the outer court, to worship. However, I still don't know if women are allowed in there. But we know for certain by the time we get to Herod's temple, women are not allowed in this area, which is like the outer court of the old tabernacle. They're forced into this area called the court of the women, and then outside of the court of the women is the court of the Gentiles. So like they keep building up walls to keep people out of God's temple.
But they're allowed in the temple now.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll get to. Sorry, this is taking a long time, but there's a whole lot of information about holy
No,
geography.
it's fine. We want to know about this.
So yeah, so this is called Herod's temple because this is the second temple from the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, and he kept adding on and adding on and adding on more stuff to it as time went on. And I think he was adding up until like the year that it was destroyed, wasn't he?
Well, Herod the Great that was building it, he dies around 4 BC, so he doesn't see it to its finish. But the project that Herod the Great began was completed in 63 A.D.
Ah, so like 7 years before it would just be totally destroyed.
7 years. The remodel was finished 7 years before the temple was destroyed. So on the top left corner, you can see the Temple Mount wall on the far left. Those large stones today, that's called the Western Wall. You'll see a lot of Hasidic Jews that will pray at that wall, and that wall would have those stones are dated to that first century point of Herod.
Where is that wall?
Where on the picture? Is it over here somewhere?
Bottom left.
The bottom left.
The
Yeah.
sun?
Here?
No. Yeah. That wall right there.
The sun is shining on
Yeah. That wall
Okay.
is the Western Wall where Hasidic Jews will often pray today.
Yeah, they go. I think they mourn over there.
I saw the wall,
Yeah, and those stones are
but
dated to
I
the
was
time
not
of Herod.
allowed. I didn't go up to the wall.
Mm. Was it? Were you not allowed because you weren't Jewish?
I just looked and didn't want to interfere or just be respectful and just stand at a distance. I just watched them pray. And
Okay.
I also saw along here that where Jesus went in on Palm Sunday to enter into the area, and that's closed up, and you can no longer go through that wall anymore.
Have you guys? Oh, sorry.
There it is. So you can see that from the top of the hill as you look down into the city. They say before the second coming that entrance will reopen.
So the story of how this temple, or the first temple came to be placed on this spot is when King David took the census of the Israelite people. And God said he was so angry at David for taking this census that he didn't approve of, that he was going to give him some sort of a punishment. So there are 3 types of punishments that God offered to David, and the last one was 3 days of intense suffering and plague. And so that's the one that he chose to get it over with, because all the other ones were longer. And at that point, the angel of the Lord came up, and he just spread plague everywhere, and he had his sword pointed towards Jerusalem, and he was going to kind of wipe out a whole bunch of people. And that's when David prayed to God in repentance and said, please stop your angel from killing everything. So the threshing floor of the place that the angel was standing when that happened is the place where the temple is now. Or it's not there now, but that's where he established the temple. Coming to the New Testament, we have Caesarea Philippi. It says in the New Testament that Jesus and the apostles were in Caesarea Philippi when he asked them a question, who do you think that I am? And you guys should know Peter's response.
Yeah.
You are the Christ.
You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.
And then Jesus responds with, upon this rock will I build my church. You are Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. The reason why he said that is because in Caesarea Philippi, that is right there. So it says they went to a high mountain. This is in the same passage where it says they're in Caesarea Philippi, and that's where Peter gives the good confession. About a week later, they're still in Caesarea Philippi when they're on a mountain again, and Jesus transfigures himself. So Peter's thinking, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. Which is...
Yeah, I'm totally following with you here.
Maybe I should have sang it.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm blinded by the lights.
I like the constant reference to song lyrics.
Yeah, what would
Yes.
you do without you, Joseph, honestly?
I know. So the Transfiguration and Peter's Great Confession both happened in Caesarea Philippi. But the thing is, the actual literal rock that he's standing on, if we consider that this is the mountain that's famous in Caesarea Philippi, is the place that is like the demonic mountain. The mountain that has the gates of Hades in it. And so if he's declaring that his kingdom starts at the gates of Hades, that's a really weird, ominous thing. Why would he say that his kingdom, like that the church starts with this place? And then he continues to talk about how the temple, the second temple, which is currently there in his time, would be destroyed. And so God's holy mountain is going to change to somewhere else. The crucifixion, this is important as well. The crucifixion happens outside of the holy mountain. This is not in the city.
Hill.
Yeah, this is not in the city. This is outside. I think it's inside city limits right now. But the city didn't used to be that big.
It is.
But it was outside of the city limits. And so it's considered, since Adam died just outside of paradise, and Jesus died outside of paradise as well, then Adam's grave is beneath the cross. So this skull you see here isn't just a random one, that's Adam's skull.
Isn't that amazing?
This is Hades.
And you can go downstairs, there's a window
The sepulcher?
at the crucifixion area. That still exists today. You can still observe, yeah, there it is. There it is right there. I saw that.
And what is it?
There's an altar right there, and they have liturgy there.
Yeah, this is called the Tomb of Adam. It is directly beneath this spot, which is the crucifixion spot, or Golgotha, the place of the skull.
Amazing.
Wow.
And Orthodox tradition holds that it's called the place of the skull because that's where Adam's skull was. That's where Adam was buried. So this is the place of the skull where you can see the rock where Jesus was crucified on, which is like up above. Right.
Where's that picture on the right from?
This is the place of Jesus' crucifixion in the Holy
Yeah, can you
Sepulchre.
see him on the cross there? That's really the spot. And you can see John on the right and Mary on the left.
Right.
Yeah, what this is 3 different pictures of areas inside the tomb
You
of
think
the,
they
the,
have
the
enough
Church of the Holy
each other?
Sepulchre.
Mm-hmm.
This right here
I see a
is
space.
the Golgotha. This right here is the tomb of Christ. It's inside this thing right here, this little building. And this is the tomb of Adam.
Yeah.
So they're all pretty close to each other.
Right.
And as you see this, you have to walk up some steps. So it's up on the hill. So the hill's still, it's still there. So you have to walk up several steps and then take a left, and then you stand right in front of that. You actually walk into the sepulcher building. There's huge doors,
Yeah.
and as you walk in, you have to really look up the hill, and that's how you find our Lord crucified.
Is that glass so you can see below?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is beneath the cross.
And you can see that from above.
That's the
atoms.
same rock that is up above here. So
Okay.
this spot right here, these little windows that you're looking down on,
Those are rocks.
those are the actual rocks where Christ's cross was. And so beneath this goes down, and then down here is the tomb of Adam, that's where that window is pointing. That's the same rock that you can see up above. And so Christ, when he dies, obviously, like everyone else, he descends into Hades, and he's on a tree. So sort of this becomes the place of God. The tree that was in Eden transforms into the cross. So sort of like, not that they're the exact same wood, but they're kind of iconographically the same thing. So at one tree, heaven and earth were separated, and Hades was created. And at another tree, Christ descends into Hades, and he breaks open its brazen gates.
He's raised up, right? So he's the fruit of the tree of life.
And he makes it possible for people to kind of bring together heaven and earth.
So when we partake of communion, we're eating the fruit of the tree of life.
Oh, is that so? He's the fruit of the tree. I didn't even know that.
Well, he's
I think that typologically is perhaps could be considered the case. I've thought of it in that regard.
So when we come to new creation, this is what Christ transformed the old creation into. We've seen a whole lot of stuff about holy geography. Now, the ultimate pinnacle of that is Christ's victory, Christ's gospel. And where we see, like, kind of the biggest example of this is in Psalm 24. So it's numbered 23 in the Orthodox Study Bible if someone wants to turn to that.
Psalm 23.
I just want to add, by the way, the fruit of the tree of life, the fruit would be life, because the fruit of an apple tree is an apple.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Jesus is the life. So therefore, he's the fruit of the tree of life.
So as we read Psalm 23, I want to point out there are a whole lot of similarities between this and this.
Oh, okay.
Psalm 23.
Yep.
A psalm by David on the first day of the week. The earth is the Lord's and its fullness, the world and all who dwell there within. For he founded it upon the seas and prepared it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend to the mountain of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? He who does not lift up his soul to vanity, he who does not swear deceitful to his neighbor. He shall receive blessings from the Lord,
Milk and honey.
and mercy from
Classic.
the God of his salvation. This is the generation of who seek him, who seek the face of God of Jacob. Lift up the gates, O you rulers, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall enter. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord powerful in battle.
Of course.
Lift up the
Yeah, very good.
lift up the gates, O you rulers, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors. And the King of glory shall enter. Who is the King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Incredible, that's beautiful.
We could have listened to that too.
That's
It's one of my favorite.
the part from
Chants.
Handel's
Yeah.
Messiah. It's in there.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And we also quote that.
We quote that in the church on Easter night.
Oh, can we get to that in a second? I'm going to talk about that too.
Ha-
And Psalm 107 or Psalm 106,
Handel
that's another one that's
composed, taking
basically talking about the harrowing of
specifically out of
Hades as well.
scripture.
Do you have it ready?
Yeah, it's
107 is
Well,
the.
the words were
King
added
James.
later,
Alright,
but he
10 through
composed the
22.
music.
Yep.
such as sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, being bound in affliction and iron, because they rebelled against the words of God, and contemned the counsel of the Most High. Therefore he brought down their heart with labor. They fell down, and there was none to help. Then they cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them out of their distresses. He brought them out of darkness and the shadow of death, and brake their bands in sunder. O that men would praise the Lord for his goodness, and for his wonderful works to the children of men. For he hath broken the gates of brass, and cut the bars of iron in sunder. To 22.
Yep.
Fools, because of their transgression, and because of their iniquities, are afflicted. Their soul abhorreth all manner of meat, and they draw near unto the gates of death. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he saveth them out of their distresses. He sent his word, and healed them, and delivered them from their destructions. O that men would praise the Lord for his goodness, and for his wonderful works to the children of men. And let them sacrifice the sacrifices of thanksgiving, and declare his works with rejoicing.
Yeah, so we see in both of these psalms, there's like a bunch of people that are grouped up and they're in darkness. And the word of the Lord comes to them and delivers them out of this darkness, which is seen as the harrowing of Hades. It even
does say-
says the gates of death,
And
The-
it says brass.
the
too.
bronze or brass or bronze gates. And lastly, for this, Ephesians 4 through 9 also refers to the harrowing of Hades. If we have someone who wants to turn to that.
Was that Peter?
Ephesians.
Paul wrote it.
Oh, I thought it was also in Peter. Peter talks about like those who are in like Hades as well. I think there's
He
two.
speaks
I have
of
it.
he speaks of
Okay.
Christ
Yeah, go for it.
preaching the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of us all, who is above all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore it is said, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives, and he gave gifts to men. In saying he ascended, what does it mean but that he had also descended into the lower parts of the earth?"
hmm So this is a great icon. We even have one of these in the church. This is the resurrection icon. So this is Christ in his resurrected glory. And who do you think he's holding by the hand here?
Adam.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. So he's rescued them from Hades. In the last,
Wait a minute, go back to that.
Shouldn't they be wearing leather?
in this icon you
Can you
see
see
Adam's
the dish
skull,
for a second?
and then
Let me see the dish.
this icon you see Adam has been rescued from Hades.
Wait, that's the gates of Hades.
Right. So
Sugar
these,
rush.
you might have noticed, are the brazen gates of Hades.
Oh, yeah, I
The
see.
brass or bronze gates. And they've
I
been
never-
shattered. And all these little pieces that are in this pit
Stuff
here
some?
are like all the broken pieces of the gates that he has totally shattered.
Ugh.
And this guy that's bound down here, sometimes he's down there in this icon, this is a depiction of Satan.
Thank you.
So Satan is like bound by his own trap. He is bound by Hades.
I never realized why the doors were that color, and now it makes sense.
Yeah,
So-
so this is the resurrection icon.
However, on the icon we have in the church, you actually see Satan in chains.
Yeah, this one right here.
Oh, there it is. I can see it.
Yeah, it's really hard to see because it's like black, but he's like
trust
chained
him.
up.
What?
Just trust him. Satan's there.
Joseph, what are the doors?
The doors,
Are
they're
they the cross?
yeah, the cross-shaped thing, sort of.
Yeah.
Those are the broken gates of Hades that Christ is standing over.
Oh, gotcha.
Because he came in and he busted in the gates. And that's where we come to the harrowing of Hades liturgy. This is our great celebration on Pascha where Christ rescued us from the grave. And so, because we see the church building is sort of like an icon of the place where heaven and earth meet, we stand outside of the church building. We do a procession around the church building, and then we go back up to the doors. I think it's the priest who knocks on the doors, right? And he starts reciting Psalm 23. He says, "Lift up your gates, O ye princes, and lift up your everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." And there's one guy who stands on the inside who's holding the door shut. And he's like, "Who is this King of glory?" And the priest is like, "The Lord, strong in battle, the Lord, mighty." It's like,
Did that happen right after the ceremony of the resurrection service? Around 12 o'clock and at night, all the parishioners are outside standing with lighting candles. And then the Mactenias are read, prayers are read, and then the gospel lesson of that night. And then as soon as that is over, after the gospel is read, you can see the people right here with the candles. Then the priest declares the resurrections hymn, and then after that, they do that 3 times. Then turn around and they go pound on the door. Oh, the King of Glory! It's a beautiful thing. It just wakes you up. It gives you such power.
everyone's holding candles, right?
Yeah, everybody's so happy. And then at the very end, we open the door. Get in! I can got the King of Glory. Get out of my way! And then we all walk in and go back to our pews and back to the service. So it's a beautiful night, and everybody just loves that to come. As you can see, everyone and his grandmother's coming to church that day. And you know, when Christmas and Easter, you know how it is.
Even in the Torah, it says if you can attend one holiday in Jerusalem, then attend Pascha or Passover, which is fulfilled by Easter. And so the same thing goes for us. If you can attend one holiday in the church, attend this.
So I mean, you really have to. Why don't you? Do you know the hymn by heart? Christ is risen from the dead.
Well, I know the Antiochian version.
Go ahead, do it.
Let's see. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tomb bestowing life.
Christos anesti ek nekron, thanaton patisas, charisamenos doi.
That's in Greek. Yeah, I remember the beginning of the Greek version, but I can't ever remember like the rest of
trash back in there.
Make him believe it, I didn't.
Thanaton, thanaton, patisas, gedisentis mimasi, zoin harisamenos.
That was good. Thanks for that, you guys.
I know how to do in Russian too.
Sure,
Oh, okay.
Try. No, I don't know the name.
I'm trying to follow
Is it just a tree?
Okay, in Russian it's Christos Christ smedni, smedni usmed poprav, Isus shivorev shivodarovav.
Wow.
They sing it really hard. They're like, Jesus Christ.
Well,
It's like, it's.
Oh, it's just called a trio. Okay, I overcomplicated it.
Well, the Russians, how are you? I want to talk to you.
So yeah, now this piece of sacred geography is essentially like broken. It doesn't work anymore the way it used to.
And then when it's done in Arabic too, it's beautiful.
Oh, you don't know.
Did you just make that up?
No, the first part, the very first 2 words, yes. The other one, I don't know. But it's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful evening for everybody. And then
I can attest to
everyone
that.
joyfully partakes of the liturgy and the prayers. and Holy Communion, and then celebrate for the rest of the night. Nobody goes home till about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, because we can finally eat meat and dairy
And we're breaking the
40
fast.
days.
Yeah, we're breaking the fast.
And everyone, like, in the middle of eating, at least when I was at the Antiochian church, someone would get up every couple of minutes and be like, Christ is risen! And everyone else is like, truly he is risen! Christos anesti! Alithos anesti!
Yeah.
It's like in the middle of feasting, someone just gets up and shouts, like, at random.
Yeah.
Because it's a 40-day preparation, and there's been prayer.
But,
So I'm sorry, but
I'm taking this away. Let's see what we're doing here.
so, also when we do the resurrection
8
readings,
o'clock, isn't it?
I think
No.
there's
7:12.
Yeah. When we do the resurrection readings, the readings at the end of the Gospels, when we have the readings of Christ's resurrection, we read them in a different direction than normal. Normally, you would read stuff either to the crowd, which is facing west, or you would read it like towards the altar, which is facing east. But you don't normally face north. And when you face north, you are reading in the direction of the demons. Because when you pronounce the gospel, you're supposed to pronounce it against the enemies of Christ. It is his victory over death and demons that we're pronouncing. So we pronounce the resurrection readings to the north. So the new temple isn't like a physical place like the rest of them are. But the new temple is actually the church. As in, the church is in the body of believers. Jesus said to the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4, "You will no longer worship on this mountain or in Jerusalem, but everyone will worship in spirit and truth."
Her name was Botany.
Yeah, Fotini. Fotini? Is that how you say it?
No, it's supposed to be gum. That was the hardest gum I've ever.
And then in 1 Corinthians chapters 3 and 6, Paul makes the point that you are the temple. He's talking to the church as a whole. You are the temple. So don't defile yourselves by engaging in other other demonic stuff that is not related to God.
Christ is in our midst.
He is ever shall be.
Yeah, that's my grandson.
And in Hebrews 9, once again, we have an example of the heavenly tabernacle. Essentially, there is an example in heaven that you can see liturgically in heaven what's going on, and it's replicated by the tabernacle with Moses. So I think it's the writer of Hebrews makes the point that God showed this pattern to Moses so he could replicate it with the tabernacle. But now that Christ has ascended into the true tabernacle in heaven, no longer are we bound by one physical location on earth. Now our tabernacle can be everywhere at once. And so we have something that looks like the pattern of the tabernacle in our churches. Let's see. This is a model of a typical Orthodox church. And here is essentially what you might consider the Holy of Holies, because this is where the table
It is the
prepares the
Holy of Holies, not
sacrifice.
considered, it is.
Okay, it is the Holy of Holies. Yeah, so the sacrifice of Christ's body and blood is prepared
The
here.
high throne area, the throne of the area, also called the Holy Throne.
And then once you get out of the altar, you have what would be considered the holy place in the ancient
Where
tabernacle.
only priests could go before.
Only priests could go in there. And now,
Only those who serve with the priest and the priest. And you can see also now women can come in and
yeah, women can come in.
Jesus.
That's a big thing.
People
We're allowed
don't
in
realize
too.
how
It's just
respectful
anybody.
Jesus was to women.
The fact that regular, non-appointed priests are allowed at all.
What?
I'm just saying, like, it's crazy how. Yeah.
We don't want to get.
Yeah, interesting too is the idea of the showbread, because the showbread was only for the priests. Of course, with the weird exception of David, which I still can't quite explain that passage in the Gospels where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees, I think, and he goes, "Didn't even King David come into the holy place and he ate the bread?" It's like, what? Like, what are we supposed to be? I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about. But now the holy bread is offered to everyone. What do you call it?
Something with a K?
Prospera is the word for sacrifice.
I think that the idea
offering.
behind that passage was that the compassion to sustain him should,
I didn't know the word
Precede the
means
ritual.
sacrifice.
like,
Mm.
it should be placed or regarded higher than just a ritualistic legalism.
I think prospera actually means offering. I don't know if it's the exact
Offering,
word.
not sacrifice. I
Yeah.
never heard
Yeah, but the bread that has the lamb in it is the same bread that is cut up for the people to eat. Not for communion, but for like the blessing, the priest's blessing.
Hey, wait a minute, Truett. I just finished reading the book Lamb of God by Dive.
Bulgakov?
Yeah, who?
Bulgakov, Sergei Bulgakov.
Yeah. What an incredible! I had an opportunity to read it last Sunday night. I read I stayed up till about 11, 12 o'clock. I couldn't get through every chapter because they're very long, but I looked at the index and wanted to see what I was interested in. I was overwhelmed by that book.
Yeah, it's an amazing work.
And I love it because it talked about God in a beautiful way, and who really is God. And I love to read things like that, trying to understand God. It was just magnificent.
Yeah, it's an immense Christological
Since you're
work.
here, Narthex.
Narthex, that is the place where the catechumens go.
So
That was the place where you entered the church, prepared yourself. That's where you prepared
Catechumens
yourself.
depart. All catechumens must depart. No catechumen can remain.
We're not doing that here in this area, in this church, because this is not, a place of. Actually, Narthex was a place for education in the early church, and Hagia Sophia is where the people would go to class and leave the church. All catechumens depart, let no catechism remain. They would go to class in the Narthex area.
That's the very end piece there.
And there were rooms for that class, for those classes. But when the church came to America and tried to, they couldn't afford to build such classes until they would do it if they had property next door, like we have here. This is now the catechumen area.
Okay.
You come and study here.
We have a very tiny narthex.
Yeah, but it's just what we couldn't afford.
Well, now
The
it's
people
big.
were not very rich at that
The
time.
speakers downstairs work now, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
they
the
That's all
downstairs could be
technically-
considered
No.
part of the narthex?
No.
Well,
No?
Father, but we expressly said that the idea of having speakers downstairs is in case there's no space upstairs.
Yeah.
So that
So
would make
the parish council, we're going to put a theater like one of these downstairs, because we're grown so much that we don't have any more room.
a closed circuit television that televises.
It'll be
downstairs.
televised downstairs. As a matter of fact, if you ever go downstairs, you'll hear me pray through the speaker.
I've heard it.
yeah, I heard it today. I was like downstairs slung something. I was like, is Irene down here? And all I heard Jansen really quiet. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, the speakers work.
Yeah, finally, it cost like a couple of $1,000, but we're very happy about that. But the narthex really was the preparation area where you would walk in to pray and before the icon of the church. Then you would get a candle and make your donation, and then walk in and go light your candle. And so the narthex is also the place of for the children to stand there until and there's a proper time to window walk in, proper time not to walk.
Yeah.
So narthex is very important to the church.
So now that Christ has given us the Holy Spirit and all of us have become a temple of God because God is residing within us, the temple can be anywhere. Like Jesus said, no longer will you worship on this mountain or that mountain. You will worship in spirit, the Holy Spirit, and truth. And so these, what we call them, our buildings, sometimes we call them temples. And the reason why we call them that is because they're made after the heavenly example, which Moses took with the tabernacle. So it's kind of set up like the tabernacle, if you've noticed then.
Oh, definitely, and that's why when I talk to the people when they come on Greek Festival and they ask me questions about the interior of the church, it's definitely, this is an Old and New Testament church because it's into 3 sections, just like the temple.
Oh, and interestingly enough, is it once a year that we prepare communion for the sick, and then we keep it all year round?
Yes.
And then
And
The
it never,
place-
it never goes harm's way. It always remains the way I put it away.
And the little place, it's like this little golden box. The place where it's put is called the tabernacle.
Yeah.
A little cool thing, because like God is in the tabernacle.
And
Yeah.
it's kept in there for, we'll wait till next Holy Thursday and see how
About a
that's
year.
going. Do I need more? Do I need to leave? But before that, you put it on a little gold plate, put a cover over it, and leave it for a week till it gets a little hard, because it's all breaks up and almost into crumbs. And that's preserved for people that need to have Holy Communion, or if somebody's dying, or they just need you to bring it to them because they can't come to church due to age. So that's kept in the holy altar. That's why you have, when you walk around the altar, that's why you have to make a reverence there, because
So the reverence in the altar
it's because
is due to God's presence. In
yes, and that
tabernacle.
tabernacle.
Okay.
Did you know that? Now you know.
No, I literally
Now,
I literally did somehow
he
not
helped
know
me
that
tonight,
this whole
he-
time.
Oh, because these are new.
That's why, bro.
Christian.
Dude,
in our
Look at
church.
this guy right
It's also kind of cross-shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
here. It is, yeah.
So it's amazing, and then that's what I really love about. I mean, it was astonishing that women did not really play a very big role in the tabernacle, although there were people that
Well,
worked in
they
the
made
temple. There were women that worked there.
A lot of women made
Like the curtains for the tent.
But they couldn't go into the most holiest of places, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
And now with the new temple and the new church, women can do it where they want.
Mm.
But they can't go in the altar though. That's the only trouble.
Yeah, so that's the big transformation between old creation and new creation.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's no longer bound to one physical place.
Amazing, isn't it?
But Christ is not done transforming the world. And so the future of new creation, the best examples of where we see this are Matthew 25 and Revelation 21. So maybe people can bring up both passages at the same time and then we read one after another.
I'll bring up Revelation.
And it's getting
Okay.
kind of late now, so we gotta.
Yeah, we'll finish this up really quick because this is there's one slide after
You're
this, but it's
taking
only the
forever,
same thing
Josie.
as this.
They have to go to. They have to have a brother with
We
me.
started.
He's a part
yeah,
of
me,
it.
I'm part
we
of it.
started 15.
Yeah, but
It's
that's
an
it.
hour
I gotta
tonight,
get
come
going.
on.
I gotta get my prayers done before.
I have Revelation, but
25.
Matthew.
You got Matthew?
okay.
Which revelation do you have?
They're
all
really
21,
close.
Yeah. It's the same chapter.
They're really close.
Yeah, it's the same
So
chapter.
you could just read both.
Gotcha.
True, it can start.
Okay.
Alright. When the Son of Man shall come in his
Thank God.
glory,
Right.
and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the
I saw
throne
the
of his
email.
glory.
Oh, it's
And
terrible.
before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me.
These are the sheep.
I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal.
Yeah, so this is a really good example of the parable of the sheep and the goats. Because what you have here is you have the righteous, which a lot of these are wearing, what is this called? Omophorions?
And they're all
bishops.
saints. They get circles around their hands.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, yes.
But some of them are
But the ones on the
bishops.
left aren't.
Bishops and monks and women. You
His
can
left.
see a few
God's
women.
left.
His left.
Yeah.
See St. Helen there.
Yeah.
And then you see there's kind of a river of fire that is coming out of the throne, and it's going to the people who are on his left, who are considered the goats. And none of them have halos.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a prophet here who's pointing them back to Christ. But right up here, you see the divine council, all of the angels and the 24 elders that are with Christ. This is actually the Russian church that is down the road from here. This is someone took a picture of this in that church, and that's this right here.
I got a picture of it.
I
too.
saw that icon for the first time like last week, and I was shocked
Dude,
that I had never noticed it
how do
because
you,
it's huge.
how do you not
It's
notice it?
covering
I
like
never
one
turned
big
around.
wall.
Bro, it's so cool. I took a picture of
It's
it.
big. It's
So if
about
you
as,
walk
it's
in,
bigger than this map actually.
And you turn to your left, and then turn left again, and be right behind you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you mean you were there last week?
I can't remember. Oh, for the meat.
Men's
for meat.
meet.
Oh, the meat thing.
It was awesome. You met a really nice guy.
I'm leaving
Slotty.
this church to go to that one for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We'll
how
see about
how does this relate to the
New
to the
Christian.
sacred geography?
So the Revelation passage will answer that. This is the event where Christ transforms heaven and earth into a place that is no longer with boundaries. So the event is the last judgment, where he declares who are the sheep and who are the goats. And the sheep come into the walled city with him. So you see Eden, it's portrayed as a walled city here, kind of like the mountain of God. This is Abraham's bosom. That's why he's got a bunch of people in his coat. That's his bosom. And these are the apostles and the saints who are entering the kingdom. This is paradise. So what this is in Revelation we have described how heaven and earth come together in the very end. So does someone want to read that? Is it you, Andrew,
Is
who's
that
reading it?
the cherubim
I got it.
painting?
Yeah, the cherubim that's guarding with a flaming sword. Kind of looks like it's two.
Symbol
Yeah,
is a
huh?
cherub.
Oh, I guess, yeah, it's a cherub, not a cherubim.
Which used to be depicted as babies with wings in frescoes. Just a fun fact. Okay, Revelation 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the fountain of the water of life without payment. He who conquers shall have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the polluted, as for murderers, fornicators, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their lot shall be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death.
Yeah, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this lake of fire, because it's kind of a downer to end it on. But we'll get back to the next verse in a second to kind of end it on a higher note. But this is often referred to Jesus as Gehenna, which is like a Hebraism. It's like Gehinnom, the valley of Hinnom, or the valley of the son of Hinnom. It's where they used to burn child sacrifices to Molech. So it's very torturous and awful. And that's like the image he uses to talk about what's going to be like to turn away from God in the new heaven and new earth.
Thank God that time is gone.
That time, well,
Mm.
yeah, you don't want to be in Gehenna. The lake of fire is not a good place.
Isn't this guy incredible from your school? Yeah, he's done an excellent job.
The very last thing. Can you read off the last passage here, Revelation 21:22?
And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb.
There you go.
Ooh, thank you.
So why don't we have a temple anymore?
Because the Lord God, the Almighty, the Lamb is the temple.
Yeah, so he's going to be there with his people physically, and everyone in the resurrection is going present in that new heaven and new earth with God directly. So there no longer has to be like a single point where humanity meets with God. Now that place in the very end will be transformed to be the entire earth.